Perfect, thank you. My name is Charles Wilson. This is Omar Ellis, and our third team member that couldn't be today is Paul Butler, but we are Cricket Flowers. We are a new food ingredient platform company with our first line of products that's going to be in the sports nutrition space, and it's a high-performance protein powder. Now, I'd like to introduce you to Julie. Now, Julie is 35, she has 2 kids, and while her time is important, her kids and nutrition is even more so. So she's an athlete, she's a lifestyle consumer, and what she does is whether it's biking or whether it's going for a swim or going on a hike with her kids, she wants to find more nutrition, better protein to actually fuel her workouts. Now that can come in a couple different forms that you'll actually find in the market today, and that's either in the form of fish on a fish fillet or sushi, could be beef and a steak, or it could be poultry, whether it's a chicken breast, or it could be in the form of eggs. But it also comes in a powdered form as well, which you might have seen on store shelves, which is a whey or soy-based protein isolate or concentrate, which is highly processed but a lot of protein per gram. Now, our product is a new ingredient that actually comes and does everything that you see up there and more in its application by providing more protein and more nutrition. I'd like to introduce you to our cricket flour product line. Now, this includes our 100% pure cricket flour, our Peruvian chocolate flavor, and also our chocolate peanut butter flavor as well. Now, our cricket flour is milled from crickets raised in the United States that are raised for human consumption. Each of these are raised for about 6 weeks, and then they're processed into a fine milled flour using only the chicken breast of the cricket. From there, we actually mix it and then create our own recipes, which some of them you'll actually see here today. So this is our first line of products is what you're seeing, and it's naturally gluten-free, soy-free, and dairy-free. And this is this isn't with actual added processing at all. So now looking at an actual weight-to-weight comparison, what we've done is we've compared all those different protein sources if we're giving you 64 grams of protein. As you can see, if you look to the far right, whey and soy concentrate, they give you about the same amount of protein as what our product does, but they're limited in their application. They can only be used in a shake, but they taste funny when they go into other applications such as baked goods or other recipes. And in 7 out of 9 categories of nutrients, we beat them and actually able to provide more nutrients than what they're able to because they're highly processed to get into that concentrate or isolate form. Now, when you look at the other categories of animal-based proteins, what you see is if you wanted that same amount of 64 grams of protein, you'd have to eat 6 times as many eggs, you'd have to eat 3 times as much fish, or 2 times as much beef or poultry. We're able to reduce your actual intake of food to get the same amount of protein to both fuel her own nutrition, but then also fuel the nutrition of her kids. And part of how we're doing that is through our different recipes. And Omar here is actually going to take around a couple samples of one of our recipes that's in that cricket flour cookbook that we published just 2 months ago. This is our spiced granola recipe. Now, if you have a nut or a shellfish allergy, hold off, but it's actually delicious. It's a spiced cinnamon recipe, high in protein from what you're normally going to find. Because we use cricket flour, we give you about 20 to 30% more protein than what you'll actually find in a granola on store shelves. But we don't stop there. We're not just in a shake workout, even though we do those. We also can be in ice cream, we can be in brownies. So where your kid might not eat a salad, they might not crave spinach, if you have one of our cricket flour brownies, we can give you that iron, calcium, B12, B6, omega-3 fatty acids, and all the essential amino acids as well. So it's a great combination that we're able to actually provide to our customers. And for this first product line, this is where we sort of shaped the path of our business. As we had an idea, we actually took it outside to do these interviews and testings with consumers and also with friends and family. And what we found is that over 1,000 different interviews and taste testings, we found that really our target market for this first launch is in that lifestyle consumer and also in that fitness market. We're able to provide a cleaner source of protein that they need for their own diets and also for their family. Now, many of our customers are in the women's age group of 28 to 45, but this also is not only just for the lifestyle, but also for dietary restrictions as well. So people who can't have gluten because of diabetics, well, we can help you there. Now, if you can't have dairy, you can't have gluten, you can't have soy, we can also help you there, and that's just naturally without those additional additives. Now, our initial target market, as I mentioned, was the sports nutrition market, and in the United States, this is worth over $5.9 billion per year in the United States, with protein powder specifically accounting for $3.7 billion per year. Now, for both of those, there's a compound annual growth rate of 11% projected over the next 5 years. So while our consumer testing told us we had a great product that's solving those problems, we're also seeing a great market for our product to launch into with great returns for our investors. Now, in the United States and also up here in Canada, there's been some great traction for cricket flour. This is coming from publications such as the New York Times, from Business Week. We also have an article that's coming out in Popular Science next month talking about the nutrition, sustainability, and the different benefits of using cricket flour in your diet. But there's also 3 different companies that are not only showing the consumer interest by selling to consumers, but they've actually concluded their funding rounds with investors to show that investors are invested in these types of companies. So 2 of those in the United States are Exo, raised $1.2 million in their Seed A financing round, but then also Chapool. I know it's not Dragon's Den up here, but Shark Tank down in the United States, he actually invested in their company as well. Both of those are protein bars that use about 40 to 65 crickets per bar. Our bags that we have up here have about 1,100 in our 4th pound packaging. So we actually give a lot more crickets than what you'll find in those. But once again, this is just I know, this is just what you'll actually see from some of the companies. But another exciting thing is right now, Next Millennium Farms is a company up here in Canada, which also just finished a financing round to build out their own infrastructure, but they're more on the farming side. So they actually are working with the University of Winnipeg to actually put their ingredients in some of the actual school's recipes there on campus. Now, we're going to go into our value chain and defensibility. I'm going to turn it over to Omar.
Thank you, Charles. So our crickets are grown in the southeastern United States in high-capacity, FDA-approved facilities. This is really important to our consumers to maintain that quality control. We don't want to source in from other countries, though we might be able to get them cheaper. We want to keep that high-quality control that the FDA regulation can bring us. Then they're sent to our milling partner, who has a patent-pending process to get them into the finest grain particle size available on the market. What this does is it increases the shelf life by a year, and it also allows for that nutrition to be retained longer. Right now, we have a 2-year supply agreement with them, and we also have a 3-month exclusive supply to be the only company allowed to use this in the sports nutrition industry. This will automatically extend once we hit certain performance metrics. We are Cricket Flour's sports nutrition ingredient company who currently sells B2C, but we recognize that there's a massive opportunity B2B, which we want to further explore. Currently, we do have some B2B letters of intent. We also, if you look to the far left, Paleo Scavenger, who's been seen on Good Morning in America, right now in the works, has used our product in their product, which will be on store shelves here relatively shortly. There's also 2 other companies right now doing testing with our product to put in their products. For our marketing operations, we have 3 phases. Our first phase, which we're currently in, is we're doing an e-commerce. We do this for 2 reasons. First, we want to keep the capital costs real low while we build that extensive customer network. Second, we recognize that internet retailing is the fastest growing retail channel in the sports nutrition industry. It grew at 18% last year. We used Evergreen SEO campaign to get us onto the first page for Google search results for cricket flours, which is highly important because, as you know, 95% of people don't go to that second page. Our marketing is still in phase 1. This is our website. That's currently, you can see our awesome growth that we've had up until March. We've had over 40,000 unique page views. The best part about this is that $0 have been spent on marketing and advertising. Let me repeat that. Not a penny has been spent on marketing and advertising. This is all organic. People are searching this out on their own. So imagine what could happen if we had $500,000 to $1 million to spend on marketing and advertising. This is our cookbook that a recipe book, I apologize, that our founder wrote, Charles Wilson. It's currently selling on Amazon and a few other channels. And what this does is 3 things. It brings in another revenue stream. It also brings back repeat customers. And it also allows customer education for the wide amount of applications that our product can be used for. This is the traction that our company personally has gotten. As you can see on the top left, Charles is being interviewed by NBC. We've also been interviewed on Radio Disney, which is another national platform. And we've been seen in Portland Monthly, which is pretty much the biggest magazine in the Oregon region. Our phase 2 and phase 3, late 2015, we want to start self-distributing to more traditional retail sites like GNC and Whole Foods, will be our primary targets. We've recognized that once we hit about 25 stores, and we got this number from talking to other consumer product companies in that industry, once you get about 25 stores, then distributors will start to acknowledge your presence. And early 2016 is when we want to partner with those distributors to increase the number of doors we're in tenfold overnight. As far as defensibility, besides the exclusive agreements that we're talking about, what we really want to do is we want to generate proprietary user data, much like Gatorade did and Nike did with their products, and be the knowledge gateway. For anybody looking for information on cricket flours or anything like that, we want to hold the keys to that information. We also want to build an elite community of athletes. We know Olympians personally, and we also know Jesse Thomas, who you see on this magazine. He's a world-class triathlete. We basically want to use a trickle-down marketing effect by them being brand advocates for us. I apologize that Paul, our CFO, couldn't be here, but I'm going to present his slides. So this is our financials. We have about a 60% gross margin. on average. You can see we break even in year 2. Then we see a nice growth curve. This is due from the multiple growth revenue streams that we will be into. Thank you. And then we're looking for an exit in 2050 with a $35 million revenue stream. Our funding milestones. During the spring, we want $500,000, and this is to increase that marketing. We're going to spend $300,000 of it just on marketing to bring more customers in. We also want to secure lower inventory costs with our current supplier. In 2016, we want that $1.5 million Series A. This is to fill the talent needs. Charles and I recognize that we think we're great. We can't do it all, so we're going to bring more people on board. We want to hit that $1 million in sales, and then we want to exit in 2020 via acquisition. For acquisitions, it's been a lot of activity in this space. Point out a particular company, Glanbia, which is an Irish cheese conglomerate. They buy up a lot of protein companies. They have nothing in their portfolio that resembles what we do and has the properties that we have. So we think we'd be a great strategic fit for them. If you look down at the bottom, the angel investors who invest right now will get 25% equity at the end when we hopefully exit, and then with an expected IRR of 106% and a 27.25 cash on cash. I'm going to hand it to Charles to talk about the team.
Thank you, Omar. So once again, our team right now is made out of 3 individuals, and our business descriptions really fall into 3 main categories, and that's business development, operations, and finance. So Paul Butler, he's a JD MBA candidate, can't be here right now, but his background's in government and nonprofit finance. Omar Ellis, he spent over 10 years with the United States Air Force working in logistics and operations, and also in food service. Myself, my background is in marketing, product development, SEO, and then also in private equity and angel office investments. But however, we know that when we bring on our next round of team, we need to build out some of those other channels to help facilitate what we're planning to do to hit those revenue marks. And that's really going to be in the food science area, B2B, B2C, and also to help us develop out more of those distribution channels as well. Now, right now, to help us fill those roles, we've really handpicked our board of advisors to really help us fill those needs that our business currently has as we grow and scale. So with our plan, we've brought in some people that have extensive experience, both with Nike for private equity and venture capital, also in retail food space and in distribution with Hummingbird Wholesale. But just as Omar mentioned with our brand development, Jesse Thomas is also on our board of advisors, who's not only a world-class triathlete, but he's also developed and launched his own protein bar company using some of the same sales and metrics and channels that we're currently using for ourselves, which would be great as we build out and scale our own business. Now, once again, we are Cricket Flowers, and we're here with our protein powder that we're actually putting into that sports nutrition product. Now, our powder not only is like what you'll see in the soy and whey-based protein powders, we can be used in a variety of applications. Just as you tried in that spiced granola recipe, we can be in muffins, salad dressings, all these things that we've already tested with consumers, and we have products ready to go out into development. They're just going into the next stage of our business. So if you have any questions, I would love to hear them.
Thank you, guys. That's a spiced granola. It's also in the recipe book. This is Charles's family recipe that it's dusted with our cricket flour protein. So it's granola with more protein in it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I see David finished his. There's an extra one over here. Do you want?
I'd suggest your campus probably has some good athletes on it.
For sure.
Has this been tested with them, and what's their feedback been?
Yeah, no, it's great. So we've actually been talking to a couple of different athletes, both Jesse Thomas, some Olympians, but then also on campus. So there's some different regulations for what products can go into DH1 schools and regulations, but that's sort of why we've been talking to our athletic department to see how to hit those same standards and get our metrics with them. But we recently just had a D1 school from, it's a big one up in Michigan, that actually reached out from their hockey team that actually their coach actually wanted cricket flour for their team. So they reached out, they're like, oh, can you sell it? We're like, of course we can. So there's some exciting things happening that way, but they are interested.
Unfortunately, we haven't got Marcus Mariota to try it yet, but we're still
I was
trying.
going to say, why is Michigan interested, but
yeah, well,
Ducks athletics aren't.
We're still going.
The question I have, the only intellectual property comment I heard related to the milling partner. Is there any intellectual property that you own, or is it just the milling partner's process that's going to be protected?
Other than trade secret or proprietary recipes and our trademarks, that's really what we house internally, other than the license that we get from our supplier.
Okay, and in terms of the license, you said there's exclusivity for 3 months, but it may be extended, I take it, if you hit certain milestones. Can you go into that? I mean, if you keep hitting milestones, can you keep exclusivity for longer periods of time?
Yeah, so right now what we've set out is we envision that we would love to have a year. We know that we've only been selling for about 2 months. So what we have is sort of this window that we have built out where right now on our actual rate that we're buying from, if we just maintain, we keep that exclusivity. Now, for actually growing and getting that longer time frame, like we have the renewal terms, but actually get a year out and not having to meet it every 3 months, that's really when we start growing and scaling the business.
And so for protections, for some other options, we are looking into what it would cost to buy out the entire supply for 2 years, and then just actually maybe partnership in 1 or 2 years after we've validated the market more.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Can you explain what you're spending your marketing budget on and why it balloons so big in 19?
For sure. So with our
Actually, those are old financials, sir. We originally had an $8 million, because we are a branding and marketing company. We know that's a long-term, very expensive game to play. So we had an $8 million ask that we removed because we thought we could be more efficient with our money in the front half and still get the same benefits at the end. So that I should have taken that marketing budget out. I apologize. Or that large.
It's not 8 million, it's 5 million. 5.1 million is the expense.
Absolutely. So we had an $8 million ask, and we were going to spend $5 million on that on marketing itself, just to bring more customers in to prepare for an exit in 2020.
So what are you going to do now?
So that's still happening. It's just scaled back on the amount we're actually investing, and part of that is because we actually built out the B2B channels. Before, we're just going to go just e-commerce and just to our B2C market. But because we're opening up into these other companies' channels, they're actually doing some of the advertising and some of that burden for us. So we're able to take down that capital
So
cost.
what should I pencil in here?
What's the marketing expense?
What's the number?
For the marketing expense, we'd have to check on that for the most recent one.
Okay.
Yes, it wouldn't be $5 million. I apologize about those old financials.
Question. I assume these are free-range crickets? Just kidding.
We do. We scoop them up.
I don't want to see them in the small cages. But I I understand I appreciate the focus on the sports nutrition market, which is a big one. But have you considered sort of the power of an environmental spin of the fact that there's 200,000 brand new people on the planet every day, which takes about the size of Manhattan to produce enough protein and food for them. In terms of you give some impressive ratios of the protein that's generated versus beef and the less water being used. Have you thought of that angle in terms of future
Here's some great
sales?
slides.
Yeah, no, we actually have, and that's something that we sort of did a different focus with this actual presentation, but that is something that's sort of key to our customers, and that's the ones that are looking for those sustainable and environmental benefits. Because to raise our crickets, we actually use less feed than what you'd find from poultry and beef, and also less water. You would use like 1/10, 1/6 of the water, depending on what we're actually comparing our company to. So right now with the focus for athletes, they're really looking for something that's a cleaner, better protein. So for that customer segment, that's definitely a little bit the higher on their priority list. But for the consumers and lifestyle stuff, that definitely rings true, definitely in our Eugene and Portland markets, and also nationally as well.
And to your point, obviously, by 2050, there's supposed to be 9 billion people on the planet, and the World Health Organization just released a report saying that we have to find a solution, and they actually chose entomophagy as the solution, which is kind of where this idea got its origins in.
Thank you.
So how do people react? So I'm a vegetarian, so I didn't eat the granola. How do people react to the overall just eating crickets? Particularly in the States, right? I mean.
Well, actually, worldwide, it's actually 80% of the world's population currently eats insects.
I know, but your target's the U.S. market, so talk to me about that.
Yeah, so that's really where we see the biggest market potential, because right now it's established that we know, one, it's good for people, it's healthy, it's safe, but then it's actually an untapped market and emerging in the United States and also in North America. So when we launched our company of where we're seeing where we could actually bring it into, we found in the United States by bringing our product to these consumers that want something that has environmental or sustainable benefits or that's also less processed, we can give them those benefits. And so when they try our product, whether it's in the flavored, because that's when someone's buying the product, they're like, crickets, they don't really know that it tastes neutral or nutty. So that's why we do have the flavored lines for some of the Americans that might be, okay, we'll try a Peruvian chocolate, but we might not try the 100% pure. But the 100% pure is actually what we're selling out of the fastest, because that's what people are searching for.
And also to your point, like initially we do get a very, ick. And I was at first when Charles approached me, I was kind of like, I don't think that's going to work whatsoever. But the fact that I was able to give it to my daughter and put it into a cookie and realize that she's getting those extra benefits, it started to sell me on it. And then I was like, you know what, this isn't a big deal, and it's going to happen in the future. So I think it's that customer education, and that's really a big piece of it that we're going to have to communicate with other people.
It's really cool you fed your daughter before you tasted it yourself.
You have to try it on somebody, right? I didn't have any.
No, but like, I mean, I don't see chickens walking down the street in Manhattan, but I'm walking down the street, there's crickets everywhere.
I wouldn't eat
So
those
I realize
crickets.
Yeah. No, it is true, but we're able to, one, actually protect like the actual food chain because we're using these commercial facilities. So what you're going to see on the streets of New York isn't going to be what's in our product, but the nutritional benefits we're able to give you from that same source.
So without your product, are we not getting enough protein now in our normal diets?
Well, it depends on what your diet
Let's
personally
say,
is,
like-
but
The CDC just released a report, it was a few months back, that said that the average American is not getting enough protein in their diet. And that's why we chose sports nutrition, because we know that athletes need more protein than the average consumer. So that's what we thought was a
Oh,
good
I see.
market
Okay.
fit.
Okay, and just one more question. On your revenue stream, you talk about other new products every 6 months. You got a challenge to get this one going. What other new other new products with that as an additive, or
yes, sort
what?
of like you tried with the granola, that would be one idea for the product. We also have an all-purpose baking flour that you can, for your kid, might make those brownies or cookies. That's already developed. We have a gluten-free one as well. We also have a protein energy drink that's made out of the protein powder as well.
Okay.
For future like bench top development.
Okay.
So those are in the pipeline, just not out right now, so we don't get distracted.
You say in the plan that with your current capacity, you can do 4,500 to 5,000 units. What's the revenue on that number of units?
So that's when we're looking to that January of 2016.
Yeah.
When we start moving into distributor, that's when we sort of max out of what we're able to get. So that number would be really what you're seeing on our sales when you look into January 2016.
So then do you have to go to a different factory, or what happens when you hit that growth? What's the investment that you need to make?
Yeah, so that's with like the minimum orders we'd have to place with our distributor. So right now we're able to stay lean because
Yeah.
we have our own domestic facilities that we're using and can actually process these orders. And so that helps keep ourselves lean. But when we move into January 2016, and Omar talked about the 25 stores before we get into those distribution channels, that's when we actually go to a co-packer. That's when some of those
Okay.
expenses you see are
So you're
built
going to
out.
outsource that?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we won't still be doing that part.
Okay.
Have you done any, have there been any scientific studies, or are there any plans for scientific studies around the health benefits of the protein, either in the overall health?
Absolutely, there have. So first of all, each batch of our cricket flour is sent for testing to make sure it has certain, the full amino acid profile and stuff like that. And we get those letters from our supplier as well. But there's been a lot of testing in general on just the quality of animal protein and how well it dissolves within the human body. And it dissolves just as good as beef protein does and the rest of those animal proteins. So.
And this is some of those testings that he had mentioned, and also the amino acids as well.
Got it. Thank you.
Sorry, can I go back to the co-packer? If you're getting so large that you need to go to a co-packer, but you're using equipment that's got a patent by your milling partner, how do you deal with the IP to get the equipment to the co-packer?
So we actually don't have to do the part, so they'd be actually sending our actual cricket flour that's milled with that patented process.
Okay.
So that co-packer wouldn't be touching
I
that
see,
part.
I see. They're not doing that part of it.
Yeah,
They're
so
doing
that's still
the
protected.
manufacturing part of it. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And in your plan, you've talked about the unique visitor value of 40 cents US dollars. I've never heard that measure. What is that?
So we've
That's
reached.
the revenue per visitor, or that's the customer acquisition cost, or?
Yeah, it's an estimated revenue per visitor at this point, and we currently push that way down to 10, 15% later on down the line. But what we did was we reached out to a few other companies, sports nutrition companies that are selling, or primarily started selling online, and found out what metrics they were using, and then we put that into our model, and that's how we got those numbers.
But if you've got zero marketing dollars, your customer acquisition should be, your customer revenue should be a lot higher.
Well, so this is the ones who are coming to it, and what we take into account, they might go to 10 pages before they buy, because we actually have information on what's the nutritional profile of crickets. They'll go to that one, or they might check out, how do I make cricket flour? They'll go to that one, and then the recipe page, and then they're like, I actually want to buy. And so when they click, we might have 5 or 6 of those page views before we actually convert them into a buyer. And so that's where you might see a little bit lower number, where it actually might increase when you start paying for advertising, because when someone then searches how to buy cricket flour, they click directly to our buy page, and it's a faster conversion at that point instead of the 5 clicks or 3 clicks for the educational side.
Yeah, and that's not an acquisition
It'll just cost you more. They're still going to want to know about crickets. They're going to want, the research won't go away, right? The early market's always going to do research. When you add page views, you're just going to pay more.
For sure, but when we're looking for someone who's looking, at least specifically in that instance, to buy cricket flour, they'll be directed to the actual buy page. Right now, because we do an evergreen approach, we bring them in with knowledge, and so they come in to try to find more on the topic, and then it's kind of an upsell approach where they find more and more information and then how to use it.
But it's not an acquisition cost, that metric you're talking about. It's simply a value cost to us, and that's how we project some of our revenues out.
It's a revenue per visitor.
Yes, essentially.
How long has Aspire been doing this?
So Aspire, originally they had won the Halt Prize, and they got that $1 million, and they really focused on mealworms to other countries originally, and then they started moving into the cricket flour market, and they've been doing this, they won that in 2012, so about 2 years now. And they don't, if you've been to their website, it's
I
not
haven't,
set up,
no.
okay, it's not set up like ours, it's not a real friendly e-commerce site, it's very much an informational site as well. So, and they're not selling on any of those other channels.
And they're a private company, and so you don't have any idea as to how.
We can give you numbers on...
They're ahead of you guys, though.
They're ahead of us that way, but in our conversations with them, their focus isn't actually in the consumer side. So their focus is actually on becoming a supplier themselves and
Yeah.
really only going after supplying a more coarse grain cricket flour and also to a different customer segment than what we're targeting with our applications.
Okay. So how do you stop somebody else from buying a cricket farm and making cricket flour?
Well, part of it's with that IP and defensibility with our actual supplier.
Yeah.
Because if you're to get a cricket flour, I'm not going to name a company, but if you were to get another company's cricket flour, theirs is actually going to be more coarse, so it's actually going to be a thicker grain compared to our light and fluffy one.
It's because of your machinery?
The machinery, the processing, and also sort of, because it can either be freeze-dried, dehydrated, there's a couple, or baked. There's some different processes, so
Yeah.
another flour couldn't actually compete with us on a one-to-one basis when it's with their own milling process.
You're pretty sure of that?
Well, that's from our
Yeah.
own supplier and testing and
Okay.
the patent.
But do I care about that if I'm putting it in a smoothie?
You do, because it's like putting coffee grounds in your smoothie compared to putting a really fine, almost dust-like powder in your smoothie. It's going to be more easily, I don't want to say adopted, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah,
It's more soluble. Thank you very much for.
and that's the coffee grounds are more of the other companies because they don't have the patent pending process that we do for ours.
Okay. I still can't get the math to work. I like the idea, I think it's really cool, but I can't get the P&L to work, I just can't get the math to work on the investment.
Absolutely. And those are month-old financials, and because obviously that's when they're requirement. And I apologize that we don't have updated ones, but we've done drastic changes to them, especially since we've started in the last month getting a lot more B2B interest. We've started changing them and moving away from that asking for more money like we talked about earlier. So the financials are really different, and I apologize that we can't give these to
And
you.
you don't have a slide or anything that you could talk us through? Because like you're asking for a check.
Can we answer the question?
Save it.
I'm sorry.
Afterwards. Thank you, though.